Hello everyone! Today we got a new patch, new cards, and with that let's get into the games. So, for my first video of this newest patch we got the new dragon, of course. Well, to be precise, we have two dragons now in the newest patch, but we are gonna be using the eroded Lord of Eroded Primal Fire. Fancy and a long title for a dragon. So let's quickly go over what this guy does, and then we're just quickly going to explain the deck, and then we can just follow the replays from there. Let's wait until that all is over, like so. So, doing the skill, as it says here, discard the top one card from your deck, and this, like, okay, firstly, normal deck does nothing. Skill, as you saw there, 3 pyro damage, discard one card. There are a few odd interactions with this skill. One, it discard cards such as Chaska Bullets or Pep Summons do have their discard effect, meaning that the summon does appear on the field. And actually here, if you didn't know, a little tip, much like with Xinyan, when you click the skill, before you confirm it, you actually do get to see if you discard a Chaska Bullet or if you discard an Apep Summon. So you get to see, like, okay, the summon is going to appear here when you click the skill, before you confirm the skill. But some of the odd interactions, for example, there's that 3-cost Flying Squad, I think is the name of the card. 3-cost with Chaska's face on it, you know, play the card and you discard 2 cards and then you draw cards to your hand, or when the card is discarded, you draw 1 card. If the dragon discards that card, Flying Squad, from the top of your deck, you do not draw a card. Which is kind of odd, because like every other discard mechanic works the same way it does when the card is in your hand. Well, actually there are some exceptions, and I think we get to see them later, but yeah, to put it simply, it discards the one from the top of your deck, which is why having Chaska with the dragon, that's like the best combination you can have. You've probably seen, by the way, this deck with Whale instead of a Pep. I just personally, I'm a Pep fan, so I'm gonna be using a Pep instead of Whale. And lastly, if you didn't know how the burst works, 1 pyro damage, 2 pierce damage to the off-field characters. Both sides discard top 3 cards from their decks. I dare say the only notable part about this, do not use Forbidden Knowledge with your dragon decks, because you are gonna end up discarding the opponent's Forbidden Knowledge for them. That's like only real tip about the burst. And then we have the passive skill Resentment. For every 6 cards you gain 1 stack of Resentment, and 1 stack of Resentment means 1 more damage. Oh, actually, one thing you needed to know, the burst immediately attaches 1 stack of Resentment, meaning that you don't need to discard 6 cards to get the first stack of Resentment. You don't need to discard cards at all to get Resentment. You only need to burst the dragon, a beast dragon, whatever. But yeah, that's a quick overview of, you can see there, that's the cards discarded, and the resentment stack is going to be separate. We are going to see it here later. So you can see our opponent is using Xinyan. They have a proper discard deck, while mine has, well, because we are not using whale, because you know, if you're using a whale deck, you kind of have to build the deck around whale. But because I'm not using whale, I'm using a pep, I can use a bunch of cards that aren't good with whale in general. Because for example, zero cost cards, especially now with Chaska, you don't really want to use that many, you know, different cost cards. You want your cards to be mainly 3 cost with whale. Have similar cost numbers, so that when you tune them you get the maximum amount of max HP for the whale. But because we are using a pep, we are more free to pick what cards we want to use. As such, my deck is more about the dragon dealing a bunch of damage, the dragon carrying the deck, with the pep being the backup. Basically, because you are gonna be sitting on one character, and at some point the dragon will die. So a pep is the late game carry in that sense. But you saw there, actually let's look at the hand instead. You can see we use cards such as Varanara and whatnot, mainly for that round 1, or to be precise, because you are discarding a bunch of cards, and of course we are going to be using Kusawa because it's good with Chaska bullets and it's good with a pep, because once again, after the dragon is dead, the only way for us to discard the pep summons is with Chaska's technique or with Kusawa. But of course, if you've ever played Kusawa, you should know that you very easily end up in a situation where you have little to no hand cards left. Which is why Kusawa in this deck, you only really want to play it in a situation where your hand has a bunch of Chaska bullets or a pep summons, or the dragon is dead. There you actually, now we get to see, you can see there's a couple resentment stacks, but we've only discarded 7 cards, so the 1 stack we actually got from the burst. And there you see we tuned cards, but we did not get stacks, because this is in fact only discards. So you do need to keep that in mind if you want to make, for example, a dragon carry deck. Like, I think if you want to make a deck that is just the Abyss Dragon carrying the whole game, because you can absolutely do that, the resentment is such a strong buff. Take the dragon, take Chaska, and like replace a pep with Kokomi, for example. It can be Ganyu. I'd say 1 12 HP. 12 HP character here with either damage reduction such as Ganyu or healing such as Kokomi. I mean, it could be... No, actually Siege Wind, you see, actually isn't that great. I can see it working, but the matter of the fact is that the Abyss Dragon can discard Siege Wind's bubbles, which is, in that case, you get no value from Siege Wind's skill. So I wouldn't say, do not play Dragon with Siege Wind. I mean, you need to be so careful about, you have to have a constant like idea of which card is gonna be the bubble from Siege Wind, and then you continuously need to be like, when do you actually want to discard with the dragon, and when you do not. Also here Kusawa coming in clutch, because it discards the Chaska bullets at the start of the match before either side can do anything. You get to see there Xinyan gets easily taken out without me needing to lift a finger. By the way, our opponent had quite the nice dice here. If only they had a character capable of carrying the game. You actually, here also, you can see we only have 2 stacks for a pep. And considering both sides use their Dragon Burst, this is why a pep is the late game carry. You do not want to aim with this deck. You do not want to aim to getting the pep stacks as soon as possible. No, you do not want that. For the first 3 rounds, all you really want to do is keep the dragon alive and just do damage. We have arcane cards such as Fight for the Death to keep a pep alive in late game, so there's no need to worry about, and we have some food cards in the deck to keep the dragon mostly alive. Of course, we are also using 2 copies of Maiden's Beloved because they are simply too good not to use on a pep. If you didn't know, when a pep has their full stacks and does either a skill or a burst, a pep heals himself, herself, itself, whatever. A pep heals, and that can proc Maiden's Beloved. So, you know, if you're playing a pep, you should always have Maiden's Beloved. Also, personally, I have not played much with this deck, but I dare say the dragon is superior, or this sort of deck is superior to the classic, or well, not exactly classic, but the older Apiep, Yaemiko and Concentrated Beast or Xinyan deck. Why, you ask? Because those decks, okay, Xinyan Apep decks, they are actually able to do damage before Apep has full stacks. But Yaemiko with Concentrated Beast version, the damage is minimal. Like outside of your summons, you do basically 0 damage until Apep has full stacks. But with the dragon, you are actually doing large numbers of damage before even Apep has the stacks, and you also do get the summons on the field, if you're lucky, of course. And this all means simply that, in my opinion, I like this deck far better than, especially compared to Yaemiko's Concentrated Beast deck. It's not a bad deck by no means, no. But I personally like this far more, because much like in the past, I like playing Xinyan with Apep far more than using Concentrated Beast to get the energy block for these cards. I liked Xinyan far more because it actually meant you can do damage before Apep is full stacks. But yeah, that's a bunch of explanation there. In the next match I'm going to explain about the game plan of the deck, but for now let's just enjoy the rest of the show. It won't be long. And with that, we'll hop on to the next match. So now let's quickly go over the game plan. So what you want to do with this deck, almost every time, start with the dragon. I mean, it works 90% of the time starting with the dragon. Also, you can see I'm running double arcane. This is simply so that if you're against a freeze deck or an overload deck, keep Edict of Absolution or both arcane cards in your starting hand. If you're running against any other deck than freeze or overload, or in some cases, you know, Gene, Sucrose, you know, characters that can force switch you or deny you from playing the dragon, keep the Absolution, otherwise keep the Fight for the Death. You always want to keep one arcane card in your starting hand, Because otherwise there's a real possibility that the dragon is going to discard your arcane card. And you do not want that. So either keep both or one, depending on what your opponent is playing. Also, most cards in this deck, like the action cards, are of the kind that you want to keep them in your starting hand. You get HP, you want to keep it in your starting hand. You get War an Hour, you want to keep it. You get a Pep Talent, you absolutely want to keep it. Same thing for the Laboratory Ruins. And here I believe you get to see what, if you get bad dice. Yeah, you can see that we saved the Dendro dice for the talent, but we didn't really get Pyro dice. I mean, 2 Omni dice is good. But let's see what our opponent is playing. Mona, Navia, Wolflord. A strong combination in the right hands. What do you see me do here? A nice little switch. The idea, by the way, was I didn't do Chaska skill, which I could have done. I didn't want them to have double crystallize with the Wolflord skill, which is why I immediately switched back there. And now, because I don't really want to tune any of these cards, these are all good cards, so we just play them and save the good dice for next round. After all, opponent did 2 skills with Mona, which you never really want to do with that deck. Of course, I don't really know what action cards they have. They might have something that actually supports the use of Mona Burst, because usually with that deck Mona Burst is like against whale or crab you want to burst Mona, otherwise you only really want to spam these 2 skills. Sometimes go to Navia, especially if you get the talent card. But our opponent does what they do. It is not up for me to decide for them. So here you get to see, now we get some better dice here. We can easily just attack with the dragon here. And once again, if you are about to discard a bullet or a Pep summon, when you click the skill, it does show you what is going to happen. And in certain scenarios you can actually like kind of, because clicking the burst does not show if you are going to discard a bullet or a summon. But if you, before doing a burst, click the skill, and the skill shows that, oh, you are going to discard a bullet or a summon, then you know like, okay, it's worth it to burst. You know you are going to get at least some extra value, either with a bullet or a Pep summon. Here our opponent trying to deny the burst from the dragon, but of course that isn't going to do much. We can just get our energy back up. Now here I was a little afraid of a fast swap to Navia, because if you count the damage it would be enough. Actually no, even a normal attack from Wolf would have... Would it actually? No, hold on. 1, 3... Yeah, basically the dragon is going to be very low HP, and I do not want to give them crystallize, so I go to a Pep here. That was the idea behind this switch. I wanted to make sure that the dragon does not take too much damage here. Then we once again do not have the greatest dice, but luckily they go to Mona. This of course means that you know, they are gonna be doing 2 fast actions, meaning that the rest of the round I can do exactly what I want, or without fear I can act as I wish. Here you can see we tune one of the arcane cards, because there's against that deck we don't need Edict of Absolution, the Fight for the Death is better. There you see we actually got lucky, we discarded the opponent's Navia talent. Very good indeed.
Chamber full and ready to roll.
And there you by the way see, you know, the skill does discard Apex summons normally. They go to the field. Instead of, like I explained, the flying squad card. That for some reason does not give you a card when you discard it. Like I kind of understand that it's in the draw pile, but it kind of says it in the card description that when it's discarded you draw one card. It's rather odd. Here of course we were hoping that they would spend Mana Burst on Chusk, but they had a bullet, unfortunate, and here it's a really bad idea to go to Dragon because, you know, the burst does 4 damage, so we go to a Pep. This way we can at least tank the burst, and now this following hit, because there's no way they have enough bullets. They have only one card in hand. That card would have to be a bullet, and then they would have to draw 2 more bullets. So the opponent simply does a normal attack, but now we have enough HP and enough dice.
Sorry.
Also there, because this is a replay, you do not actually see it, but I did check with the skill and I did saw that it was going to be a bullet. But I wanted to play it, you know, for keeps. I wanted to make sure that nothing sort of magic happens. So I used the arcane card, which draws 1 card. And I mean, anyway, I have 2 stacks of resentment. Right here, there isn't there really anything they can do. Bursting just to have fun. I mean, the animation is real nice. And that makes our opponent quit. On to the next one. Against Soyokase, they are going to be using the new card as well, which is the Yansan. Now I'm not gonna explain Yansan here and now, it's gonna be its own video, but I guess the short and simple is Yansan is Mona and Bennett baked together and balanced out from there. But that's the short and simple of it. Let's concentrate on the match. Now in this game, this was actually a little difficult because we have decent dice, decent hand cards. Apep Talent, Varnara, Golden Troops Reward. By the way, most of my cards are 1 cost or 0 cost cards, for the sake of Kusawa, of course, and Chaska's technique. But the only 2 cost and 3 cost cards that are in the original action cards of the deck are 2 copies of Tenacity, meant for both the Dragon and Apep, and of course 2 copies of Apep Talent. Everything else is 1 cost or 0 cost cards. And you see, in this game, this was actually a little difficult because Iansa's skill gives you a fast action. I, of course, you know, I wanted to avoid, because you see, we have no healing card, so I want to avoid the damage onto Dragon. Of course, our opponent is playing some tricks here, which means that the Dragon has now low HP. I still, of course, do want to... Also here, a quick trick. Well, you see there I already played the skill, but because you can check what happens when you play the skill, by that I mean you can see if it's a bullet or a summon. If it's not either a bullet or a summon, you can play a Pep Talent card and then recheck whether it's going to discard a summon, because there is the possibility that the Apep's talent card places one card on top of your deck. So that's just like a neat little trick to do. Here I didn't do that because I don't want to end my seems I'm misremembering from I thought I ended with Chaska here, but of course now you can see if they do a Nahida 5 skill, no, the dragon will be dead, but I end up actually sacrificing the dragon. And now we are actually going to be relying on Chaska in this game. I mean, we already have a Pep's talent card, and we already have one summon.
The breeze is restless.
Here we are actually getting cards from the Chaska skill, and then I just end up ending my round on Chaska instead of doing anything else. And see here we already have 2 summons for a Pep here. All we need to do is tune a couple cards and we can easily discard them with the Chaska skill, Chaska technique. While our opponent, well, they unfortunately have Klee Burst ready, but they do not have Jansson's Burst, which is very good. You can see there I tuned the talent card and tenacity to make sure that the summon and the bullets get discarded. Now of course Jansson's skill is of no trouble here. That just means we get a free switch to a Pep and we can do a Pep skill to get more summons on the field. Now here this was actually surprising. I was expecting them to burst Jansson. Because you know, you need to burst it, much like Bennett. You need to burst Jansson to get the damage bonus. But they ended up bursting Klee. Maybe their hand cards were so good they didn't want to tune them, or maybe they simply, you know, had perfectly 3 pyro dice, so they ended up deciding that actually let's go see. We are on a replay. Okay, this is really odd. Why did you not burst Jansson with those? Like tune one of these and burst Jansson. Why go for Klee? Like, were you afraid that... No, but because one die... Just play a food onto Jansson and burst Jansson. Why did you go to Klee? I do not understand. Jansson burst would have been much better, because then there would have been Electro onto my Pep, and Klee could have done a damage buffed overload next round. Very odd in my opinion, but let's not judge. They probably had experience, you know, successful experiences using Klee's burst. Of course here we do not want to end our round on Pep, so we go back to Chaska. And we do not do a Chaska technique because I don't want to risk losing a fight for the death. Our summons are anyway enough to take care of Klee. Like so. And you see here that Kusawa is going to discard both summons, so Apep is going to go Super Saiyan here. Like so. And now actually our burst does enough damage to immediately take out the Jansson. Of course we are going to use the Arcane card because, you know, they have Jansson's damage buff. And, you know, Nahida can absolutely do quite a load of damage. But luckily for me I get to heal quite a lot, so there shouldn't be anything they can really do here. And you can see there, even if they had gotten Fury from this, it would have not been enough. But if they had gotten Providence, now hold on, they have 1 die left, Providence's... No, actually, Providence would not have been enough either. Yeah, because 5... No, hold on. 5 dice. They do Yansan. It would have been enough because Providence cost 1 and then the skill cost 1. And then they could have... Yeah, actually, no. Let me correct myself. With Providence, they could have won. No, actually, no, because I have made... Had they played Providence, I would have healed here properly, and I think I actually do some healing here anyway, because, you know... because of the skill, yes. And well, nothing else really matters, I've already won the game. The summons are going to take care of Naida here. But yeah, with Providence, had I not had healing or Maiden's Beloved, there would have been a possibility of me losing. Anyway, on to the next one. Now in this... Well, there's gonna be 2 more games, this and the next one. And in these games, I've done a little change to the deck. We are now using 2 copies of Puff Pups instead of having 2 copies of Boar Princess. I simply came to the conclusion that since you are anyway gonna be 1 tuning, 2 discarding so many of your cards, the likelihood that you'd get value from Boar Princess is too low for them to be actually useful. And in my previous games I had come to the conclusion that having more healing cards for the dragon would be far more beneficial instead of the very infrequent extra die or 2 from Boar Princess. I mean, the only 3 artifacts we have in the deck are Golden Troops Reward anyway. The original idea with using Boar Princess was the fact that whatever artifact is on the dragon would get refunded when the dragon gets killed. But yeah, I came to the conclusion that instead of that, having a couple more healing cards in the form of Puff Pups would give 1 more value, more survivability to deck and more value to using Maiden's Beloved early game. Because in the end you do need full stacks on a pep for a pep to get value from Maiden's Beloved. No. Well, I'm used to calling it Maiden's Beloved because that's the better version of the artifact set, but you get the idea, even though it's Maiden's Fading Beauty.
Breeze is restless today.
Yes, yes, indeed. Also, using specifically Puff Pups is, you know, firstly they go well with a pep skill once again because you draw and awaken my Kindred card, which activates Puff Pups. And in situations as you saw here, when you happen to draw Chaska Bullets or a pep summons to your hand, you get value from Puff Puffs. So yeah, with such a small change, I do think it was quite effective. Also here once again, Kusawa discarding bullets being the best thing in this deck. Killing an off-field character even before the start of the round. Now for some reason, probably our opponent's biggest mistake in this match, they used a 5-cost Nahida skill on a 1 HP Chaska. Not a good idea. We of course see a possibility for a burst, so we do it. By the way, it always pains me to see the Laboratory Ruins getting discarded either by the skill or the burst. Like everything else is fine. Okay, Kusawa in some cases is unfortunate to lose it to a discard, but most of the time it's just like, okay then. Here we play Fight for the Death just so that Kusawa doesn't accidentally discard it. And we actually happen to draw a bullet from the arcane card, so that's actually gonna be good for Kusava. Like so. And we happen to draw another bullet, and you know already what that means. Kusava is gonna be winning us this game once again. I mean, then again, that Xinyan example in the first game, that was kind of won at the moment their dragon died. But yeah, let's get to the last game. Now here at the end, I have not played the whale version of this deck, neither have I played against a whale, where any whale deck with this deck. So I cannot actually say, like, in comparison, if a pep is better than whale here. I mean, technically you can get more damage when you are on the dragon, especially with the burst. There's a higher chance, especially okay, if you replace many of the cards with more draw cards. Here, by the way, we are once again immediately switching to Chaska and doing a Chaska skill to tank the damage from Yoimiya, even though we have some healing. But because our dice wasn't that great, in my opinion, I didn't want to go tuning cards here. So I decided to do this rotation instead, which is, by the way, in every game where your opponent is aggressive. For example, in this deck, they are just doing Yoimiya normal attacks. Starting with Dragon, switching to Chaska, doing a Chaska skill is perfectly fine. Especially if you have healing cards or you have Tenacity in your starting hand and you can play either the healing cards on the Dragon when it takes damage, or you can play the Tenacity on the Dragon. After all, this version of with my deck, this relies on the Dragon so much you actually want to keep it alive, as a reminder. But yeah, I have not faced against such, well, I guess they are current meta decks, you know, Dragon, Whale, Chaska especially. So I cannot say if this is a good challenger or better in any way. I mean, there is the likelihood that the, you know, pro players playing Dragon, Chaska, Whale, they are just simply so hard-coded to the fact that Whale is a strong card and you should always play a Whale deck. I mean, and once again, no shame to the pro players, it's just like, well, it's much like I like a pep more than Whale, so I play a pep instead of Whale here. And of course, you know, because from a pure numbers perspective, Whale is better than a pep, like number wise. And I guess in most Whale decks have a better win rate than pep decks, to my knowledge at least. I believe it's so. But yeah, I have not faced against many meta decks with this, so I don't actually know how effective it is if you run into some bullies while playing, you know, people who play nothing but the meta.
Chamber full and ready to roll.
But nonetheless, if you are an Pep fan, I recommend giving it a try. And of course, if you want to make or have the Dragon as your solo carry, just like mentioned before, replace a Pep with Kokomi or Ganyu, for example. But yeah, by the way, we are doing a bunch of switches and whatnot to avoid the damage from Sitlali plus Yoimiya burst combination. Get Kusava on the field and get our first action next round. Because I mean, there was really no point doing an attack there. Kusawa gives us better value. Especially because we saved 2 Dendro dice with Varanara, so for sure we are able to do at least one discounted skill before we play any cards, because that's how Kusawa works. It's only a discount if you haven't played any cards. Here, I think my opponent surprisingly does not... No, they did do that. I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, that's what I did. I actually used a paper burst here. Because, okay, let's see. 2 HP, 1 HP. When they end their round, this is going to do immediate 1 damage. My plan here was to sacrifice a pep to get full value of Fight for the Death on the dragon, and considering my dice, I would still be able to get quite a lot of done with the dragon. Because you can see here, I can do a skill followed up by a burst next round, which with 2 stacks of resentment would be more than enough. Of course, I also had gamblers, which meant that I can save some extra dice here. Here actually, well, this is a very minor, I mean, you can already see the summons are going to leave our opponent with very little HP, but I could have actually played another summon and won the game right here. Also, I do a little miscalculation. I have 3 dice at this point, so, you know, even Varanara does not save all my dice, but not to worry, Kusawa is going to finish the game once again. And yeah, that's gonna be all for today. Next time it's gonna be either Mizuki, the second dragon card, or Yansan. I'll see you then. Goodbye.